What does it actually look like inside Barron Trump and his girlfriend's very private world? Not the tabloid speculation, not the political theater, but the quiet reality of being 19 years old. Standing 6'9", worth $150 million from cryptocurrency alone. And trying to fall in love while Secret Service agents vet every person who gets close to you. This is a world most of us will never see, never touch, never fully understand. Today we're going to pull back that curtain and walk through every room, every whispered detail, every stolen moment. That makes up the most protected romance in America. Because here's what nobody tells you about being Barron Trump's girlfriend. You don't get photographed at restaurants. You don't post on Instagram. You don't even get to exchange phone numbers the way normal couples do. Instead, you communicate through Xbox chat, through Discord servers, through encrypted apps designed to keep your existence a secret from 8 billion people who would love nothing more than to know your name, and yet someone chose that life. Someone looked at all those restrictions, all those complications, all that suffocating security and said yes. Said, I want this, said he's worth it. Let's start with how they even met, because this detail alone reveals everything about Barron's isolation. Multiple insider sources confirm she's not a public figure. She wasn't some socialite at a Mar-a-Lago gala, or a celebrity's daughter with her own security detail. The reports suggest she came from his digital world, that vast online space where Barron has built genuine connections, away from the cameras that have followed him since birth. Think about that. When you can't trust anyone in physical spaces, when every person you meet might be using you for access, for selling stories to tabloids, the internet becomes your only safe haven. Your only place to be normal? Barron understood this early. His brothers have publicly confirmed he's deeply embedded in online culture. He loves crypto, he follows meme coins, he understands Discord, communities, and streaming culture well enough that he personally advised his father's 2024 campaign to reach young male voters through podcasters like Joe Rogan, Theo Von Logan Paul, and Aiden Ross. Those recommendations generated tens of millions of views and were credited with shifting an entire demographic. That wasn't luck. That was someone who genuinely lives in these digital spaces, who understands them from the inside, who found community there when the physical world offered nothing but scrutiny. So when insiders say he met her online, possibly through social media, it fits perfectly. It's the only space where Barron Trump could ever be just Barron. Now picture January 2025. He's 18, a freshman at NYU's Stern School of Business. And something has shifted. People close to him notice he's lighter, more present, the oddity on campus, as some described him. Someone too tall, too famous, too protected to blend in, suddenly seems less isolated. He has a girlfriend, his first real girlfriend by most accounts. But here's where their world diverges completely from anything you or I have experienced. You want to take someone on a date. You pick a restaurant, make a reservation. Maybe worry about whether you can afford the nicer bottle of wine. Barron wants to take someone on a date. An entire floor of Trump Tower has to be cleared. Secret Service conducts a security sweep. Every entrance and exit is monitored. Every employee on that floor is vetted. Only then can two teenagers sit down and try to have a normal conversation. This actually happened September 2025. According to page 6 in the Daily Mail, Barron shut down an entire floor of Trump Tower for a private date. Some called it a romantic masterstroke. Others saw it for what it really was. The only way a son of the president can share a meal with someone he cares about, without it becoming a national news story. Imagine being that girl. Imagine taking an elevator to some undisclosed floor, stepping out into empty hallways that usually bustle with staff and residents, knowing that every person who works in that building has been temporarily removed so you can eat dinner in peace. The views of Central Park, through those floor-to-ceiling windows, the knowledge that you're in one of the most expensive pieces of real estate in Manhattan, with gold-plated walls surrounding you. And yet the whole point of this elaborate operation is just to feel normal for a few hours. That's the paradox of their relationship. Extreme wealth and extreme limitation existing in the same moment. Infinite resources, deployed in service of one simple goal. Privacy, and she chose it anyway. The insiders all say the same thing. She's really nice, they hang out a lot. The relationship is genuine and low-key. These might sound like vague descriptors, but in this context, they're revolutionary. Because every person in Barron's orbit knows the alternative. They know about the social climbers, the attention seekers, the people who would leverage proximity to the Trump family into a media career, or a reality show or a book deal. The fact that multiple sources consistently describe her as nice, as genuine, as someone who stayed in the shadows on purpose, tells you she understood something most people don't. She understood that the relationship itself had to be the reward, not the clout. Not the access, not the lifestyle. Just him, this becomes even more remarkable. When you consider what she walked away from, because in November 2025, just before their one-year anniversary, they broke up not dramatically, not with leaked texts or public statements, or TMZ exclusives mutually and quietly. The way they'd done everything, insiders say she wanted to focus on her own path, her own career, her own identity. After nearly a year of existing in Barron's shadow, of being someone's secret, of subordinating her life to his security requirements, she needed to remember who she was outside of that relationship. Barron found it hard to process. He wasn't brooding, sources say, but he was different, more serious. During the holidays, the lightness from earlier in the year had dimmed, and then January 2026 arrived. Reports started emerging that the couple was quietly reconnecting, regrouping, feeling out whether what they'd built could survive her need for independence and his impossible circumstances. The relationship clearly matters to both of them. One insider noted another described Barron as thoughtful, private, and being careful about his next steps. What does careful look like when you're Barron Trump? It means no public acknowledgement. It means continued anonymity. For her, it means rebuilding something fragile in the most exposed environment on Earth, while pretending it doesn't exist to everyone, except the people directly inside it. But, and here's what that reconnection also means. It means she came back after tasting freedom, after stepping outside the bubble, after remembering what it felt like to live without Secret Service protocols, and media speculation and the constant weight of being attached to the most scrutinized family. In America, she came back anyway. That's not desperation, that's not gold digging, that's not clout chasing. That's someone who weighed the costs honestly and decided the relationship was worth them. Now let's talk about what she actually signed up for. Because the logistics of dating Barron Trump would destroy most relationships before they started first. There's the communication problem. Barron can't just give out his phone number. Every text, every call, every digital interaction creates potential security vulnerabilities. So he relies on platforms where anonymity is built in. Xbox live chat Discord servers. Encrypted messaging apps if you want to reach him. You learn to navigate these spaces. You accept that your relationship will be conducted through gaming headsets and encrypted DMs, instead of FaceTime calls and cute voicemails. Second, there's the vetting. Every person who gets close to Barron undergoes some level of scrutiny. The Secret Service doesn't just protect him from physical threats. They protect him from compromising relationships, from people who might be leveraging access for foreign interests or criminal enterprises, or simple blackmail. Dating him means accepting that someone in a dark suit ran your name through databases before you ever held his hand. Third, there's the isolation. Barron can't do spontaneous. He can't meet up in 20 minutes at that coffee shop you like. He can't surprise you at your apartment. Every movement requires coordination, advanced planning, security assessments. Romance with him is necessarily deliberate, necessarily scheduled, necessarily stripped of all the casual moments that make most relationships feel alive. And fourth, there's the family. Not just any family, the Trump family. With all the political baggage, all the media scrutiny, all the decades of tabloid coverage and legal battles, and cultural polarization that name carries, dating Barron means accepting that half the country will hate you by association before they know a single thing about you. It means watching your boyfriend's father dominate news cycles while you maintain total silence. It means existing in the orbit of a dynasty that generates more opinions than any other in American life. She accepted all of it at least once, maybe twice. Now let's go deeper into their world, because understanding this relationship means understanding the environment that shaped Barron into someone capable of it. Picture Trump Tower in 2006. March 20th, a baby is born on the penthouse floor to Melania and Donald Trump. Before he's taken home from the hospital, preparations are already underway. An entire floor of the building has been converted into a nursery. Not a nursery room, a nursery floor. Square footage that would constitute a massive apartment for most New York families, dedicated entirely to one infant. Ellen DeGeneres sends a golden stroller. Not gold-colored gold. The kind of gift that sounds like satire until you realize the people involved genuinely live at that level. By age 7, Barron is receiving caviar-infused skincare treatments. Not because he asked for them, but because that's simply what children in his world receive luxury so normalized. It stops registering as luxury at all. He attends Columbia Grammar and Preparatory School, one of Manhattan's most elite institutions. Then St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Maryland. During his father's first term, where he can be close to the White House, then Oxbridge Academy in Florida. Our annual tuition runs $50,000, and the student body is carefully curated from the nation's wealthiest families. At every school, Secret Service agents accompany him. Not just nearby with him in the hallways. Outside the classrooms, watching every interaction with other students. Imagine trying to make friends under those conditions. Imagine trying to be normal, when armed professionals are paid to ensure no one gets too close to you. Some kids would crumble under that pressure. They'd become paranoid, entitled, detached from reality, in ways that make genuine connection impossible. But the consistent reports about Barron paint a different picture. He's described as grounded despite the circumstances. Thoughtful private, in a way that feels deliberate rather than defensive. Much more like his mother, one insider noted, referring to Melania's famous reserve. That groundedness didn't happen by accident. Melania Trump made choices to protect it. During Barron's NYU years, she split her time between Washington and New York, maintaining a presence in the city so her son wouldn't be completely alone. When he was 11 and his father won the presidency the first time, she delayed moving to the White House for months, so Barron could finish his school year without disruption. Every decision oriented around one goal, letting him be as normal as possible within fundamentally abnormal circumstances. But there are limits to what any mother can protect. In January 2025, something happened that revealed both the dangers of Barron's digital world and his capacity to navigate them. At 2:23 in the morning London time, Barron received a FaceTime call that would eventually become evidence. In a UK criminal trial, on the other end was a young woman he described as a very close friend, someone he'd met through social media, someone whose exact relationship to him remains debated, with speculation swirling that she might be the same anonymous girlfriend. We've been discussing the call lasted maybe 15 seconds. But in those seconds, Barron witnessed something horrifying. The camera showed the ceiling. He heard screams. Then he saw a man's head enter the frame. And he watched that man punch the woman he'd called. What do you do in that moment? You're 18 years old, you're in New York. The violence is happening in East London. You have no way to intervene directly. Most people would freeze. Most people would be so shocked by what they were seeing that the call would end before they processed what to do. Barron called 999, the UK emergency line. Within 10 minutes of that FaceTime ending, he was on the phone with British authorities, providing the woman's exact address, insisting that it was really an emergency, describing what he'd seen, a guy's head on the phone. And then the camera turns to her crying and getting hit. Police arrived and arrested Matvey Rumyantsev, 22-year-old Russian national and former MMA fighter, who had been assaulting the woman out of jealousy over her friendship with Barron. The charges eventually included 2 counts of rape, assault, strangulation, and perverting justice. The woman later testified at Snaresbrook Crown Court. In January 2026, her words about Barron: "He helped save my life. That call was like a sign from God." Now stop and consider what this incident reveals about Barron's world. He has genuine friendships with people he's never met in person. People scattered across the globe, connected to him through the digital spaces that represent his only freedom. Those friendships are real enough that someone across an ocean felt comfortable FaceTiming him in a moment of crisis. Real enough that he stayed on a call no one would have blamed him for ending. Real enough that he took action that ultimately led to her rescue. But it also reveals a vulnerability. The people in Barron's online world don't undergo the same vetting as those in his physical one. A very close friend could be anyone, could have any background, any associations, any entanglements that might eventually explode into public view. The speculation that this woman and Barron's girlfriend are the same person persists across social media. Some tabloid reports hint at it. Others explicitly deny it. The truth is unknowable from the outside, but the possibility raises questions. If they are the same person, it means their relationship began under extraordinary circumstances, trauma bonding. Some might call it a connection forged in a moment of life-threatening crisis. If they're different people, it still illustrates something important. Barron has multiple, significant relationships with women, met through digital spaces. His emotional life happens largely online because that's the only place it can happen safely. Either way, the incident cemented a particular narrative around him. Barron Trump, the kid, everyone assumed was sheltered and soft, was actually capable of decisive action in a crisis. The hero label appeared across conservative media. Raised right, declared posters on X, some even projected forward future president. Whether or not those projections are realistic, they reveal how hungry the public is to understand who Barron actually is. After 19 years of calculated silence, any glimpse into his character gets amplified, interpreted, mythologized. His girlfriend exists entirely outside that cycle. She remains unprojected, uninterpreted, unknown, and based on everything we can gather. That's exactly how she wants it. Let's talk about what she's getting in return for all this secrecy, because it's not nothing. The lavish elements of Barron's world are real, even if they're experienced behind closed doors. There's the Trump Tower floor, obviously gold-plated walls. Central Park, views that most New Yorkers would sell organs to, wake up to access to, one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in the Western Hemisphere, not as a tourist or a guest, but as someone who belongs there. There's Mar-a-Lago, 126 rooms, on a barrier island in Palm Beach, estimated value, somewhere between $250 and $450 million. Depending on who's doing the assessment. The kind of property where world leaders stay, where the most powerful people in Republican politics come to pay respects. She's not attending the galas or posing for photos, but she has access to spaces most humans will never enter. There's the White House itself, since Barron transferred to NYU's Washington campus for his sophomore year. He's been residing at the Executive Mansion, private theater bowling alley, pool staff who attend to every need. Historical weight of sleeping, where Lincoln slept, where Kennedy slept, where every president since John Adams has slept. If she visits him there, she visits the most iconic residence in America. And there's Barron's personal wealth. $150 million primarily from cryptocurrency. His stake in World Liberty Financial, his reportedly massive Bitcoin holdings, his involvement in meme coins and DeFi, projects that have generated returns the traditional financial world can barely comprehend. At 19, is wealthier than his mother. Wealthier than most of his siblings. Wealthier than people who've worked entire careers. In finance, does she benefit from that wealth directly? Unclear. No reports suggest shopping sprees or designer gifts, or any of the stereotypical trappings of dating. A billionaire's son? The wealth creates the infrastructure of their privacy. It pays for the security. It maintains the properties. It makes the floor clearing, the encrypted communications, the deliberate isolation all possible. She's not experiencing lavish in the Instagram sense. She's experiencing lavish in the operational sense, the full machinery of extreme wealth, deployed to create conditions where two people can simply be together. Here's where we have to talk about what the public sees when they try to look through this couple's walls, because in the absence of real information, the imagination runs wild. The internet is full of rumors about Barron's girlfriend, names thrown around with zero evidence. Maddie from TikTok, Sarah Clara Jones. Eve Jobs, daughter of Steve. None of them hold up to any scrutiny. The most elaborate theories claim she's Russian, possibly connected to the woman from the FaceTime incident. Others insist she's British, met through online gaming communities. Some particularly vicious posts label her with slurs, call her low-life claims she's involved in adult content, or connected to figures like Andrew Tate. That last connection exists only because Barron reportedly dined with Tate in 2025. A meeting that drew criticism, given Tate's history with misogyny allegations and trafficking charges, but there's no actual evidence linking Tate to Barron's girlfriend. It's guilt by association, stretched across multiple degrees of separation. The royal rumors are perhaps the strangest. Satirical posts suggested Barron should marry Princess Isabella of Denmark, with Greenland offered as a dowry in a joke about American territorial ambitions. The bit went viral enough that some people apparently believed it was real. Other posts nominated Princess Leonor of Spain. All of it fictional, all of it revealing the strange projections people make onto a teenager they've never heard speak. Because that's the thing. We've almost never heard Barron Trump's voice. He doesn't do interviews, he doesn't give speeches. He didn't even speak at the Republican National Convention in 2024, despite playing a significant behind-the-scenes role in his father's campaign. The longest public samples of his speech are probably the 999 call transcripts read aloud in a British courtroom. Into that silence, people project whatever they want. He's a crypto genius. He's a sheltered prince. He's a future president. He's a secret Democrat. He's autistic. He's gay. He's dating royalty. He's dating nobody. Every theory fills the vacuum his silence creates. His girlfriend lives in an even deeper vacuum. No voice clips, no photos. No confirmed name, just really nice and genuine. And stayed in the shadows on purpose. Adjectives and implications where identity should be. What we can say with confidence is what she isn't. She isn't a public figure. Sources explicitly note this. And the absence of any leaked photos or social media footprint confirms it. If she had any public presence before Barron, someone would have connected the dots by now. She isn't someone seeking attention. The relationship reportedly began in January 2025 and lasted nearly a year before the breakup. That's 11 months of secrecy. During one of the most intense news cycles in American political history, 11 months when a single Instagram post, a single leak to a tabloid, a single friend who couldn't keep a secret, could have made her famous overnight. She didn't take any of those opportunities, and she isn't dependent on him. Breakup itself proves this. She chose to focus on her own path, even though staying with him would have meant continued access to everything his world offers. Walking away takes a strength that gold diggers don't have. And she isn't someone who disappeared. The reconnection in January 2026 means she came back after the break. After the space, after whatever self-discovery she needed to do, she came back to one of the most complicated situations. Any partner could face that tells you she's real. Not a rumor, not a projection, not a tabloid invention, a real person, making real choices about a real relationship with someone who happens to be the youngest, son of the President of the United States. Now let's examine the challenges she'll face if this reconnection becomes something lasting. First, there's the fundamental incompatibility between privacy and proximity to the Trump family. Barron has maintained his silence for 19 years. That silence required constant, deliberate effort. It required his parents' protection, particularly Melania's. It required avoiding events where cameras would catch him. It required never giving the media anything to work with. Girlfriend disrupts that calculus. Suddenly, there's another person who needs to maintain perfect discretion. Another potential source of leaks. Another family that might talk. Another set of friends who might let something slip. Another digital footprint that investigators could trace. The more serious the relationship becomes, the harder it gets to keep hidden. Second, there's the future question. Barron is 19 if he follows a traditional path. Finish college around 22, then enter business or politics, or whatever combination his family connections make possible. Where does a girlfriend fit in that timeline? Does she wait while he builds his career? Does she build her own career in parallel? Do they go public at some point, facing the media scrutiny they've worked so hard to avoid? Most 19-year-old couples don't have to think about these things. They date casually, break up, get back together, drift apart naturally. But for Barron, every relationship carries the weight of long-term implications. Girlfriend isn't just a girlfriend. She's a potential future first lady. If he follows his father's path, she's a potential co-parent of children who would become targets themselves. She's a person whose entire life would become subordinate to his family's demands. Third, there's the money problem. Not the lack of it, but the complications it creates. Barron's $150 million comes largely from cryptocurrency ventures tied to his father's administration. World Liberty financial benefits, directly from pro-crypto policies. Coming out of the White House, critics have alleged insider trading, conflicts of interest, inappropriate foreign investments. None of this has resulted in charges, but the ethical questions hang over everything. Dating Barron means existing in proximity to those questions. It means being lumped in with a family that critics call corrupt. It means having your relationship characterized as transactional. Even if it's genuine, every nice thing he does for her becomes evidence of gold digging in the eyes of people who've already decided the Trumps are irredeemable. She has to know all this. If she's smart enough to maintain perfect anonymity for this long, she's smart enough to understand the risks. The reconnection means she's accepted them. Let's talk about what their days might actually look like, because the tabloid version of billionaire romance is all private jets and champagne and exotic vacations. The reality for them is probably much quieter. A student NYU's Washington campus now. After transferring from New York classes, assignments presumably some version of social life, even if it's heavily restricted. His coursework at Stern focuses on business, which tracks with his crypto interests and his recent real estate ventures. He's not just the president's son, floating through college on family connections. He has actual expertise in specific fields, actual ambitions for what comes after. She presumably has her own life focus on her own path. The insiders said about the breakup that suggests career goals, maybe graduate school applications, maybe a job in whatever field she's pursuing. The breakup might have been about reclaiming the identity that gets assumed when you're someone's secret. When they reconnected, it probably wasn't with grand gestures. No floor clearing at Trump Tower, at least not immediately more likely. Quiet texts through encrypted apps. Tentative conversation about whether they could make it work. This time discussion of what would need to change. What boundaries would need to exist. What compromises each would have to make. That's the unsexy reality of their very private world. It's not gold strollers and caviar skincare. For her, it's figuring out how to exist. In an impossible situation, with someone you care about, it's choosing discomfort because the alternative, being apart, felt worse. Let's pull the lens back one final time and see the full picture of what we're observing. Barron Trump turned 19 in March 2025. He'll turn 20 in March 2026. He's lived through two of his father's presidential campaigns, including the successful one that put him back in the White House. He's watched his father become the most polarizing political figure of multiple generations. He's seen his older siblings become celebrities and targets in their own right. He's experienced his family name becoming a cultural Rorschach test that reveals more about the person using it than about the family itself. Through all of this, he stayed silent. No interviews, no scandals, no social media presence. Beyond his apparent activity in crypto communities and gaming platforms, he's the most unknown known person in America, the tallest shadow in any room. And into that shadow, someone stepped willingly. Think about the courage that requires not just the practical courage of accepting security protocols and communication restrictions and public invisibility, the emotional courage of loving someone the world wants to define for you before you get a chance to know him yourself. Every article about Barron comes with baggage. Political baggage from his father, celebrity baggage from his family's decades in tabloids, aesthetic baggage from his appearance. His height, the conspiracy theories about his neurology that circulate despite zero evidence. To date him is date all of that. To accept that people will have opinions about your relationship before they know it exists. She accepted it, walked into it with eyes open. Stayed for almost a year, left to find herself. Came back anyway. That's a love story. Even if we'll never know its details. That's someone choosing another person, despite every rational argument against it. That's the human element that survives, even the most inhuman circumstances. Because let's be clear about how inhuman Barron's circumstances are. At 11 years old, he moved into the White House. Not because his family bought a house in Washington, because his father became the leader of the free world. His bedroom was in a building where decisions affecting billions of people are made. His morning routine happened in a structure surrounded by armed guards and anti-aircraft missiles. He attended middle school with Secret Service agents flanking him. He went through puberty, while tabloids speculated about his height, his demeanor, his supposed disabilities. He became a teenager while the country tore itself apart over his father's presidency speechments. Investigations and eventually a violent attack on the Capitol that sent rioters into the building where he lived. Through all of this, he stayed invisible. Did his homework, played his video games? Apparently developed genuine expertise in cryptocurrency and online culture. Built friendships through digital platforms because physical friendships were too complicated. became by all accounts surprisingly normal. Given everything abnormal around him, then he fell in love or something like it. Close enough that it lasted almost a year. Close enough that when it ended, he was visibly affected. Close enough that when she came back, he was willing to try again. What does that tell us about who Barron Trump actually is? It tells us he's capable of emotional connection, despite being raised in conditions that should have made it impossible. It tells us he has the judgment to find someone genuine amid the noise of opportunists who must constantly approach him. It tells us he respects privacy enough to maintain it for both himself and someone he cares about. It tells us he experiences loss and recovery, like anyone else, even if he does it away from cameras. It tells us he's human, which should be obvious, but somehow isn't. When we're talking about people at this level of fame and wealth and political significance, his girlfriend, whoever she is, saw that humanity found it worth protecting, worth hiding herself to preserve, worth returning to even after leaving. That's the story inside their very private world. Not the gold-plated walls or the cleared floors or the cryptocurrency millions. The simple fact that two people found each other, something real, and chose to protect it from a world that would consume it. Given the chance, we don't know her name. We don't know her face. We don't know her voice or her background or her dreams or her fears. But we know she exists. We know she matters to him. We know she made choices that reveal character. Even if we can't see the character directly, in a culture obsessed with visibility, with clout, with leveraging relationships into content, she represents something almost extinct. Genuine privacy love that doesn't need an audience. Intimacy that isn't performed. Barron Trump grew up in the most watched family in America and found a way to be unseen. Probably emerge eventually. The crypto ventures are pulling him toward business. His campaign advice suggests political instincts. His father's legacy, whatever it becomes, will demand acknowledgement from all his children. When that emergency happens, when Barron Trump finally steps into whatever spotlight he's been avoiding, we might learn who stood beside him during these years. We might finally see the face behind the most carefully guarded secret in American celebrity, or we might not. Maybe she'll stay invisible forever. Maybe their relationship will fade into the background of whatever public life he eventually chooses. Maybe we'll never know anything more than what we know now, that she existed, that she mattered, that she chose him when choosing him meant choosing invisibility. Either way, we've been inside their world for a moment. That's where Barron and his girlfriend have been living. That's the world we just walked through together. Thanks for being here.